Good afternoon. I feel honored and privileged to be sitting here at TEDxPortofSpain Women. And I was told a long time ago that I was a feminist, so I feel at home. So I'm here with my dear friend Meiling. Full disclosure, we've known each other for a very long time.
Very long.
I just have a few notes so that I could keep on track. She's the one doing the talking, right? So keeping with this evening's theme, or today's theme of beyond, hopefully this conversation will take us a bit beyond mailing the woman and mailing the brand, so we get a deeper understanding of this icon that we have and has been in service for the last 50 years. But before we get into what is to come, let's take a look back. So Ms. Meiling, tell us a little bit about your beginnings.
Well, I grew up in St. Augustine and literally grew up in my mother's sewing room. I went to St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. Mm-hmm. My mother was one of the finest needlewomen of Trinidad, and I literally spent most of my free time, in her sewing room, completely fascinated by what she was doing, amidst fabrics, whirring machines, buttons, Vogue magazines that fascinated me. My father was an academic. He worked at the Imperial College of Agriculture. He was a soil researcher. And, really the discipline from my parents and from the nuns of St. Joseph Convent, I think has me here today. When I was finished convent, I knew that I wanted it. From an early age, I remember writing an essay at 11 saying, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. Being the only child of my father, he couldn't understand how his gold bean would ever make a living in Trinidad doing this. But my mother, this was a dream come true for her. Living vicariously through me, she prodded him. And he said, yes, you can. We will scrape together whatever. I lived in a very humble home, but not to America. You will go to the UK. And I went to London. Fortunately for me, I went to London in the swinging 60s.
And what was that like?
Oh, that was, still I think back of it, and it was one of the most exciting times of my life and informed what I do. I went there. I didn't go to art school because I didn't know much about, how to go about getting a career in fashion. So I found this school, Lucy Clayton, which kept coming up each time, and it was like a finishing school, but I went with all the skills from my mother and really just had to know more about design. And I studied there for 2 years and then lived there for another 2, and was at the time when there was a pivotal change in fashion. The miniskirt came in, the Beatles, Courage boots. I was a flower child with long dresses in the streets and bells around my neck. I think my mother was they didn't know what was going on.
Well, that was all sex and drugs and rock and roll time.
Sex and drugs and rock and roll, except the drugs. And to me, this was so exciting. Actually, I shared a flat with Alison Hennessy and Rose's Hezekiah and her sisters, so it was a crazy time, but a wonderful time which informed what I did. So coming back, and I had to come back, and after living in an apartment as a young single woman, you come back and you have to get back home with mommy and daddy and all the restrictions.
How was that?
That was difficult. Once I came back and thought Trinidad, and it was like years behind in fashion. How am I going to survive? Thought that I would just fall into my mother's sewing room and carry on her business. She said, no, you're going out to find a job. And luckily for me, there was a very vibrant manufacturing time in Trinidad. There was a negative list, so Trinidad wasn't allowed to import any garments. So there were lots of fabric shops and there were lots of factories. I got a job at Debutine, and funnily enough, I met someone who knew me right here, who I hadn't seen since Debutine, or a few years after. And I have to tell you that it was quite an experience, but I learned a lot. It taught me, in a way, how to run a factory. Of course, I was there as a pattern maker, grader, and we had a chance to submit designs every Monday morning. Every Monday morning, my design was rejected because it was too far ahead.
Too far ahead.
And
so what were you making at Debutine?
Debutine dresses in horrible fabrics, and frills and flowers and really gross, until I hit on which you can see I saw that this was going to be my signature in a way, not knowing that would be a very classic coat dress, shirt dress. And it sold for them. It was accepted, and it sold thousands, and it was exported all up the Caribbean, and every Trinidadian woman had a debutine coat dress by me. And then I said, you know what, why can't I open my own shop? So my aunt had lived on Flamand Street, next to TNT, and she offered me her little room, which was off the garage. And in the smallest room, I opened my shop with $1,000, scraped together from family, which was a lot of money at the time. And started. That's how I started.
So you set up a boutique.
A boutique, but I was still manufacturing at my home in St. Augustine.
All right. So could you imagine that 50 years later you'd be mailing the brand?
You know, at that time I didn't even think about branding. I don't even think I had a label. I mean, the name Meiling was known in many homes, but they didn't have a face to me. And I have to say, there was no Facebook, no Instagram.
So how did the name get out there?
So the name got out there by the newspapers, because on 1, 2, which was, I think, you know, everything in fashion is about timing. And it was lucky I came back. I must have been the only designer in Trinidad at that time. There were 2 boutiques that imported garments. And His Ward had mainly for women. She found me. I started dressing her. So every Monday or Friday evening, I think the name came up,
right.
Garments. That was big for me. And then I started having fashion shows, doing 2 fashion shows a year, and doing fashion shows that like Trinidad had never seen, very modern. The first one was done to drums and music at the Chaconia Inn, with just a few people, and then I had another, and then meeting you all, I've always done fashion shows that have been, you know, pushing the envelope a bit. And I think that, and just by the sheer discipline of getting up every morning and going into my sewing room and producing.
So what do you think has afforded you to remain relevant over that time and to grow the name Meiling, grow the brand?
I think just applying myself to what I do, to my craft. I think reading a lot of, and keeping in touch with fashion internationally. Also by the mentoring I do and surround myself with other artists like you, working in Carnival with Minshall. All of this has informed who I am, and really one of the things is I've always wanted to remain relevant. So I try to keep abreast what is not only fashion, but music, reading, and this has made me, you know, made the brand.
You spoke about mentoring. Tell us about how important it is to work with younger people.
Oh, I love it. You know, this has started, I did mentoring for the Masters, which was done by a ministry. We did it together. And I think from then on, I thought that this is interesting, mentoring young people, and not just me giving or sharing my knowledge with them, but they giving back to me, having conversation with them, finding out what they're reading, what they're listening, what's on Netflix. And it's a two-way, it's a symbiotic relationship between us. So it's not about me just mentoring them. I learn a lot.
You get a lot back.
And I think this has kept me where I am today.
Right. So you think that has informed your sense of relevance?
Absolutely.
And connection to what's going on now?
Yes.
How do you take on board, you know, trends and passing fancies and still maintain a sense of
I think as a designer, as a creative, or especially as a designer, one has to find their signature. And, you know, it takes you a little bit time to find your voice and to find the signature. I think I've known a lot, well, for the black and white, but a lot about my white shirts. And finding that voice and putting something special into it. Because if you know, my tagline is less is more. I'm a very minimal designer. My mother taught me amazing needlework, embroideries, which I have put into my work, and I also feel it's like imbuing a little bit of love with all the technology, all the machines you can buy, and all the trimmings you can buy. I want to keep that, and that has become my signature. And you know, I just make white. Well, I do other things with white shirts, and I make other things with black or white. A lot of people don't know this, but you know, I just keep on and keeping involved and reading business of fashion and just trying to keep alive. I mean, the work and the signature within my sewing room.
So what are your thoughts on legacy and carrying the brand forward in terms of its sustainability?
Yes, with the word succession,
Succession,
on the lips of
yeah.
everybody now, you know, a lot of people come in and ask me, what is my succession? And of course, I would say in the last, maybe only 2 years, I've been thinking about it. From mentoring, I'm hoping that I would get some designers. I just collaborated with one on a fashion show this year, and I'm looking at who will carry on the brand, because I hate the idea, although I tell them, listen, I have 20 more years. So, you know, I have some time to find that person and to groom that person.
No immediate retirement plans?
None, absolutely none. A gentleman came in and said, so when are you going to retire? I said, retire? I don't have that word in my vocabulary. I love what I do.
What's your biggest challenge working with young people?
They don't have the energy that I do.
Ah.
And that really gets me. I think they can't keep up sometimes. I can't. Like one told me today, I said, so, I mean, she's a freelancer, and I said, but she needs a real job in the meantime to afford her to do what she's doing. And I said, so have you heard from the company? He says, no, but I need time to relax. And I said, relax? And you don't have a real job? That is one. For them keeping up with me, you know, I am in my studio every morning at 5. And the other thing, I find that they're not curious. They're not, you know, they're stuck in their phones, so they'll walk through my garden and they wouldn't see anything. I would say, oh, did you see that flower? Or did you see that leaf? They wouldn't know. They don't read. And I'm saying reading informs a lot of what I do. A lot of my collections are informed, as you know. We've done, you know, we did one on Alice in Wonderland. We did one on Night Woman. So I think that's what. I think the energy, they want instant gratification. They want to just come out of school, they don't want to intern, and they suddenly, you know, a few posts on Instagram and they get 1,000 likes and 1 million followers, and they think that's it. It's not.
And it speaks to the fact that, yeah, you could clap if you feel like it. These sort of ideas that we have that kind of could limit us and keep us back, how do you challenge that within yourself?
Well, being a creative, you know, you doubt yourself all the time. Sometimes I think it's especially getting for a new collection, it's so daunting. Is it going to make it? Am I going to make it? You become very vulnerable, but sometimes I think in the doubt, it gives you that power to go on and to question yourself and to listen to that inner voice. I meditate every day of my life, and this has become very strong, I would say, in the 20 years. I love silence. Silence is my luxury. I live alone, and I love the idea of opening. Well, my day is full of people, managing my staff, meeting clients, but that's silence when I get at home on the weekends, or where I can read and I can listen to that voice. The pandemic was hard for business, but I have to say I had no problem with the silence.
Quite enjoyed it. Okay. So in a sense, that silence is one of your superpowers, that seeking the silence, taking time to be still.
And listen to myself. I think silence is very powerful. Some people shun it because you pace yourself when you're in the silence, and you have to deal with a lot of things that you want to or you don't want to. But to me, that's my superpower.
And you live in Woodbrook, just down the street from me.
Neighbors.
And Woodbrook ain't no silent place.
Not at all.
In recent times.
We bought my parents when they thought, well, you know, you have a shop, so we're going to move into Port of Spain, and we bought the house in the 70s, the early 70s, and it was a completely different place. Now I have a security door to get into my workspace. The noise is amazing. It's just grown. There are murders on Carlos Street and the Arapita Avenue very often. But somehow I love being in the center of town, and being in the center of town and creating the oasis, if you know my place, of walking through my garden. Even the other day when I left you from exercise, and it was so hot, and I walked from the black box, and I opened the gate and I said, oh my God, this is why people say, oh, it's so lovely to walk into your...
It's quite an oasis.
Yes.
In the midst of all the craziness.
And you know, getting up in the morning and hearing the birds, and on the weekend seeing the butterflies or the hummingbirds, and that all feeds into my creativity and makes me enjoy even living in Woodbrook.
So we've discovered that one of your superpowers is being able to be still in the midst of all the madness of Woodbrook.
Yes.
What bits of advice would you have for young creatives, young dreamers, people who hope to be what they may be in time?
continue dreaming, you know, and don't just dream, attempt to do whatever you're thinking of doing, because, you know, you don't want life to go back and think, if only I had. You know, many of times I've created things that hasn't had the results that I've wanted, but you try, and it's not just about talking the talk, you have to walk the talk, and you have to work hard, and you have to really be disciplined and focus in whatever you're doing, and don't be afraid. It is daunting, and it's easy for me to sit, but I am quite crazy. I have a friend who says, I don't want to call you while you're getting ready for collection because you become a bitch.
You're in the dragon lady mode.
Yes.
So, in closing, anything you want to add?
I'll tell them that I'm a grandmother.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Because I didn't.
That's good. I'm not one of these grandmothers that can drive and pick up. First again, I don't drive. That's something else, you know. So, and I am working every day, Monday to Saturday. But I think they love coming there because it's like a wonderland for Ren, the youngest, because I have a 26-year-old in London, and then I have a 15-year-old grandson, the love of my life, and then I have a 13-year-old granddaughter, and then 4. But they love coming there because my grandson is, well, he says he's an artist, so he loves drawing, and we speak about art. We go to art galleries, and the young ones come to tell me what dress they want, and what color they want, and how I should do it. So that is, and on weekends I see them. Sundays and weekends are my weekends with them, where we run up and down. And one said to me the other day, because they all call me Meiling, and my son said, oh no, call her Granny. And he said, no, when she gets old, we'll call her Granny. So my son said, what do you want from her?
Miss Meiling, I can't thank you enough. I mean,
thank you for being my friend and for the conversations we have that inform my work as well.
Bless. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed.